What's up, everyone? It's Chris from PickDawgz.com here with your free 2023 NCAA Tournament West Region preview. Before we get to that preview, got to let you guys know at PickDawgz.com, we're doing it bigger and better than anyone else. Got more free pick videos on our channel than you'll find anywhere else on YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed and also take advantage of our free Sportsbook bonus offer. The link in the description of this video below. Now, while I do love giving out free picks, if you're looking for my best bets, the games I love the most, including my daily $15 best bet, check out PickDawgz.com and click the Premium Picks tab at the top of the page. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at this NCAA tournament, the NCAA basketball tournament. The March Madness finally upon us, and we're gonna take a look at the West Region preview here. Now, what I am gonna do is I'm gonna try to give you guys a walk through the bracket. Maybe what I see if I see some potential upsets. Maybe a bold prediction. Maybe if there's a dark horse here, and I'll give you my pick for who I think is going to make it out of the region, make it to the Final Four. But before I go any further, I want to let you guys know, if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. Drop who you think is going to make it. If you see any potential upsets, what your picks are for this region of the tournament, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to take a look at the top seed in this region. You got the Kansas Jayhawks, number one, viewed by many as a potential number one overall seed. And some feel that the Jayhawks got shafted being placed behind Houston. 17 quad one wins are the most in the country. Going up against the 16 seed Howard Bison, the MEAC regular season and tournament champions. The most wins in a season for Howard since 1987. Then you move on, you got the 8th seed Arkansas Razorbacks, 20 wins. Definitely, a great spot for them to fall into considering the injury issues that they dealt with throughout the season. And it just looked like Arkansas, wasn't maybe at times going to be able to overcome them, but they were able to do so. Going up against the 9 seed Illinois Fighting Illini, 20 wins in what was, let's call a spade, what was a bit of a down year for the Big Ten, but still, a solid performance for Illinois nonetheless and a tournament appearance. Moving on to the 5-12 matchup, we got the 5 seed St. Mary's Gales, the co-regular season West Coast Conference champions. They lost to Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference title game and had to settle for a share of the regular season title after losing to Gonzaga in the regular season finale as well. Going up against the number 12 seed VCU Rams, the A10 regular season and tournament champs, highest win total for VCU in a decade. And close out the top half of the bracket with the matchup between the number 4 seed UConn Huskies, rebounded nicely after starting the year really, really well. I think they started the year 14-0, and then they went through a bit of a rough midseason stretch, but they closed out winning 10 of their last 13. Meanwhile, the Iona Gales in the 13 spot, the MAC regular season and tournament champs, the MAC with 2 A's. And for the Gales, it was their 11th 20-win season in the last 14 years, and 52 combined wins in 2 years under Rick Pitino. This Iona team is no joke. But we move on to the bottom half of this West Region bracket. And you've got TCU as the 6th seed. Another team that rebounded nicely. Mike Miles came back into the lineup and was definitely a key contributor for the Horned Frogs. But now TCU has dealt with another blow that we'll have to talk about in a couple minutes. Meanwhile, they're playing the winner of the first 4 matchup between the Arizona State Sun Devils and the Nevada Wolfpack. You move on to the 3 seed, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And we mentioned them just a minute ago. Rebounded from a tough start to the year. They won 23 of the last 25 to close out the year. They earned a share of the West Coast Conference regular season title. They beat St. Mary's in the end of the regular season, then beat St. Mary's again in the conference tournament to hoist the trophy. Going up against the 14 seed Grand Canyon Antelopes of the WAC Conference Tournament champs. And you move on to the 7-10 matchup, Northwestern, just the second program appearance in the NCAA tournament, going up against the 10 seed Boise State Broncos. We'll have to see if Boise State can sort of exercise some demons on behalf of the Mountain West, who have had their struggles at the NCAA tournament in past seasons. And we round out this bracket, or at least this section of the bracket, with the 2-15 matchup, the 2 seed UCLA Bruins, the Pac-12 regular season champions and conference tournament runners-up. But now they'll have to see how they can fare without Jalen Clark, out for the season. It's just a massive blow for UCLA. There are still talented pieces there. They've still got, guys like Tiger Campbell, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Adam Bona, and many, many more. But Jalen Clark was still a solid piece of that UCLA backcourt, so we'll have to see how they get along. They're going up against a 15 seed in UNC Asheville, the Big South regular season and tournament champs, and we'll give you a name to remember, Drew Pember. I didn't even mean for that to rhyme, but it is what it is. Pember, he averaged 21.2 points per game, 9.4 rebounds per game, was the Big South MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Tournament MVP. And it says that he's going to have a big say in how that matchup goes between UNC Asheville and UCLA. But without further ado, let's take a look at some potential upsets that we might see in the later round, or at least in the first round matchup, first couple rounds of the opening weekend. And I'm going to start here with the play-in tournament, the play-in matchup, Nevada or Arizona State over number 6 TCU. Now it can be a little bit tricky considering we don't know, who the opponent is going to be. And there's no denying that TCU, they got a lot better with the return of Mike Miles Jr. from injury, but I think whoever makes it through here, it's just a bad matchup for TCU. But I especially think so if it's Nevada that makes it through, and that's who I think is actually going to make it through. From a first four standpoint, both teams are top 50 in defensive efficiency, but Nevada, it's just a far better offensive unit, and they get to the line, they make their free throws, while Arizona State, they put a lot of teams at the foul line. The other problem I see is that Nevada is just a very tall team. They're 17th in the country in average height, and again, if they make it through, they go against a TCU team that'll likely be without one of their best bigs in Eddie Lampkin Jr. Now, Nevada, they also don't turn the ball over, and that's big against TCU's pressure defense. That's top 20 in terms of defensive efficiency. Again, this is all hypothetical right now, and I'll look to update everyone on the morning show or potentially in our videos here at Pick Dawgz once we know that matchup. Now we move on to the next upset that I could potentially see, and I think this one's actually a much stronger potential for an upset. I'm putting this one probably in as an upset. I like Boise State over Northwestern. This falls into the category of minor upset, but for me, it's still an upset nonetheless. Northwestern pretty much backed into the conference tournament. They lost 4 of their last 5, and while Boise State alternated wins and losses down the stretch, they were still the better team. And when you compare both these two teams side by side, Northwestern's bread and butter defensively was defending the blocks down low, but that doesn't really apply here against a Boise State team that doesn't really play and run their offense through the low post. Boise State, they're not necessarily a deep team, but they do a lot of things really well, and they're the much better shooting team compared to Northwestern, who are 320th in effective field goal percentage, meaning they're not taking good shots, and the ones that they are taking aren't falling. Again, a 10 over a 7 upset isn't necessarily a monumental one, but I still count it. So we'll take Boise State over Northwestern as an upset there. Another upset I like, and we'll get into my concern here, but I like VCU as the 12 seed upsetting St. Mary's. My concern here is that there's a lot of people that are viewing this as the most likely upset in this region's opening round. But the thing is, I can see it. I mean, VCU, they don't have the same havoc defense that they did with Shaka Smart leading the charge. But this is still a VCU team that gets after you defensively. They force you to play slow in the half court with pressure. And they only allowed 63.1 points per game this season. Now, St. Mary's, they were even better in terms of scoring defense. They only allowed 60.1 points per game. But the Gales have also been known to stall on the offensive end, and every possession matters in what's likely going to be a defensive slugfest, as does momentum, as VCU won the A10 to enter the NCAA tournament with 9 straight wins. We saw St. Mary's struggle to cope with press defenses from the likes of BYU and Gonzaga, and I'd argue that VCU presses and puts just as much pressure, if not more, than both of those teams on the defensive end. And we saw the Gales' struggles and those struggles that they had in those games. The blueprint is there for VCU, and I think they pull it off. So I'm going to take VCU for the upset over St. Mary's. I do have one more upset, but this is going to sort of tie into my bold prediction of this region. And my bold prediction: Kansas isn't making it out of the first weekend. We're going to have a new champion by the end of the first weekend. And we're going to go back, and I'm going to tell you who I think is going to beat them. Well, we talk about how rare the 16-1 upset is. I still think it's a rare thing. I don't think it's happening here. But, you can see how much of an upset I think it's going to be here. I like Arkansas over number 1 seeded Kansas in the second round. I think Kansas has their work cut out for them in this game. I really do. It's a Kansas team that, they're going to have some mojo coming back with, coming into the tournament with the return of Bill Self. But let's get back onto the court. Depth has been a big issue for the Jayhawks as they've dealt with a ton of injuries this season. And they're still up in the air about the status of guys like Kevin McCullough Jr. as you know, at the time that we're recording this video, I'm still seeing him as questionable. But this is a Kansas team that, you know, they don't blow anyone away statistically. I mean, they're average at best on the offensive and defensive glass. They're average shooting the three. They're average at the free throw line, and they don't use their bench all that much, as they're third worst in the country in terms of bench minutes. Now in Arkansas, they don't employ much of a deep bench either. And while I've said how big I am on momentum, even going 3-4 in their last 7 games, I still think you could see how much of an impact getting Nick Smith Jr. has had on this Razorbacks team. They beat the crap out of Florida. They beat the crap out of Georgia at home too. They had a tough final 3 games though. You know, they narrowly lost to the number 1 overall seed in Alabama by 3 points at Tuscaloosa. They lost to a top tier Tennessee team in a tough road environment at Thompson Bowling. And they failed to cover at home against Kentucky on senior night. Now, the senior night loss to Kentucky stings, but again, I think there's a lot of upside for this Arkansas team. Like I said, my bold prediction going to be that Kansas does not make it out of the opening round of this year's tournament. We've seen the 8-1 upset before. I think we could see it here again now. It's still also going to tie into my potential dark horse here to make it out of this region and go into the Final Four. I'm going to say it one more time. The Arkansas Razorbacks plus 1,400. I'll add to that point just made here. I'm not betting the house on Arkansas. I'm saying this Arkansas team represents great value. You know, in my heart of hearts, I truly think that if this Arkansas team stays healthy the entire year, we're talking about Arkansas as a top 3 seed. I really, really believe that. You know, I mean, top 25 projections don't mean a ton. I'm looking at you, North Carolina. This is still an Arkansas team that many had entering the season as a top 10 team, a program that still has a ton of winning pedigree over the last couple seasons. They reached the Elite Eight just last season. Wouldn't surprise me if Arkansas made it out of the region here. And at plus 1,400, I definitely think there is some major value there. You can sprinkle a couple of bucks on it. But now, let's go to my best bets and who I think is actually going to make it out of this region. I do think, you know, Arkansas is worth a sprinkle here for sure. But for me, you know, I can make a case for a pair of teams here. I'm going to give out both. If you want to play them both or play one or the other, maybe this helps point you in a direction. I'm going to be going with either Gonzaga or UConn. Like I said, I can make a case for both at plus 400. These two would square off in the Elite Eight should their paths align, and truthfully, whoever wins that game, I think makes it into the Final Four. These are two teams that caught fire at the right time, with the UConn, you know, like I said, winning 10 of their last 13 down the stretch after a tough spell in December and January, and at one point early in the season, UConn was the best team in basketball, and if they find that form again, you know, especially down, you know, as we go through this tournament, watch out. But on the other side of the coin, you know, here for me is Gonzaga. You know, I've voiced plenty openly in my videos over the course of the season my disdain for this Gonzaga team, as I just felt that they didn't have the same punch and wow factor and intimidation as we've seen with past Gonzaga teams. But they've still won 23 of their last 25. They enter the tournament as the West Coast Conference regular season champions and the West Coast Conference tournament champs as winners of 9 straight. It's a well-rounded, well-coached Gonzaga team that's made it to the final in 2 of the last 5 tournaments. They've gotten into the Elite Eight in 4 of the last 7 tournaments. I think that experience and that winning mentality counts for something. Wouldn't put it past Gonzaga to make the Final Four here. So those are going to be my 2 selections for this bracket. It's going to be UConn and Gonzaga, and or Gonzaga at plus 400. But there you have it. That was your preview for the West region of the 2023 NCAA tournament. But what are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to make it to the Final Four, and will they win the national title? What upsets do you like? Leave your picks in the comment section below, and don't forget you can find all of my best bets, including my top March Madness selections, at Pick Dawgz Premium. And while you're at Pick Dawgz, check out our betting tools. They're 100% free, and they're a great tool to have when you're making your best bets for the day's action. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, hit the thumbs up. Helps us out a ton. It doesn't cost you a cent. Best of luck with all your bets, and let the madness begin.